Hello, powerful creators, and welcome to the second episode of Crucial Conversations, tapping into creativity with Miss Stone USA and celebrity fashion designer Ariel, Jillian. Crucial Conversations mission through Inner Sense Healing Arts Collective is a nonprofit focused on fostering self-reflective practices within disempowered populations. In an effort to build a restored and engaged community, our vision is to create a system of support which understands the shared responsibility of community in creating a more embodied and peaceful society. And with that being said, I think it makes sense to bring in Ariel. And Ariel, thank you so much for
Hello.
joining us today.
Thank you
How
for
are you?
inviting me. I am absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Danita.
Yeah, it's so dope to have you here. Just because, like, one, we're gonna be learning how you tap into your creativity. But before we even get into that, first tell us about you, because you are a powerhouse. You truly are phenomenal when I think of everything that you are involved in.
Right. Oh, okay. Where do you want me to start? Just my journey with my business and fashion?
Yeah, let's start. Let's actually start with your business and your journey in your business.
Okay. So I am a fashion designer in Atlanta, Georgia. Growing up, like I love drawing. I love just colors and all these things. And I got my first sewing machine when I was 10 years old. Made my first skirt. Absolutely loved it. Wore it to church. Everyone was like, "This is so cute. I love it." And I just loved that feeling of, turning nothing into something. So at
Mm.
the age of 10, I knew I wanted to be a fashion designer. It was something that was, always on my radar. I just, loved the idea of making clothes. Started making clothes for my Barbies, eventually turned into, turned something I love to do. I just always knew I wanted to do it. So during high school and then also in college, I pursued fashion. I actually graduated from Washington State University with a fashion design degree.
Go
And
Cougs.
go Cougs, yes. And so following that, I traveled to Birmingham, Alabama, and became a high school teacher. And that was like my first job out of college.
Mhm.
But even through that process, I still loved designing. So I would make clothes for myself going to school. Eventually started making clothes for my co-workers. And then eventually, like, even my principal had an outfit for me by the end of the time I was working there. And you know what? I was like, this needs to be a business because I just keep making these outfits for people around me and for myself. And, I could really turn this into a business. So I believe it was 2015, I launched my first clothing business called Ariel Inc. And basically, it was just custom clothing, really directed towards Black empowerment and just a nice Black movement of just, creativity and just bringing power and elegance into fashion. And so I released that in 2015. And ever since then, I've been, just really working with custom clothing and it's just blown up and evolved since then.
Yeah, so let's talk about how you're in Alabama.
Yes.
Are you doing pageants? Because you're also Miss Stone USA,
So
right? So were you doing pageants during that time too?
I was not. No, this is actually my first pageant. I did do a pageant in college, though. I did Miss Black and Gold, which
Okay.
is um, derived from the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And so, I've always had this inclination towards liking pageants, but after I left teaching, it was all about fashion because it was just something that I was naturally gifted at. And so I just wanted to pursue that as much as I could. And so what I did is I just went 10 toes down into learning how to create, learning about how to make clothes, actually sew these clothes myself. So
So
I
you took
started
your these skills.
Right. So I started from the ground up, really. I didn't have like a team behind me. I didn't have manufacturing or anything like this. I literally started with buying the fabric myself, making the patterns, sewing up these garments myself. And so, just focusing on that and focusing on my skill took up a lot of my time.
Mhm.
And so I really put any other creative passions aside, and I just focused on fashion design. And so I didn't start getting back into pageantry until 2019, which is the first pageant I did on an actual um, USA level. And so I actually ran as Miss Clarkson USA,
Mhm.
and I was running for the position of Miss Georgia USA. And it was a wonderful experience. I learned a lot. I did not win the title of Miss Georgia USA, but this will actually be my second time competing. And so
Beautiful.
I'm excited to try again.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. You are a teacher in Alabama.
Yes,
Went to school for fashion design, but you go into the realm of education.
yes,
From my understanding, many fashion designers, it's not really a stable source of income.
right.
So you quit your job with a stable source of income, and how do you tap into your creativity and move to Georgia and become like a fashion designer? Because you also have worked with very impressive names, celebrities that many people know. So like trying to figure out how did this happen?
Right. Um, and I think a lot of that comes from not being afraid to take risks and put myself out there.
Mhm.
Also being that I'm from Seattle, Washington. I joined Teach for America, which is the education organization I joined, which allowed me to teach. But they decided to move me out to Birmingham, Alabama.
Mhm.
My three choices were California, um, Alabama, and New York, just because I knew once I stopped teaching, I could do fashion. So I already had it in my mind, I want to teach for, the 2 years of my commitment. But after 2 years, I might want to get into fashion. So the only reason why I chose Alabama is because my older brother was there. He had lived there. So I was like, okay, I can be a little close to family. But they,
Real quick, did Alabama have constraints on your creativity? Because I imagine as a fashion designer, creativity is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, booming more so in New York and California than Alabama.
right, right. And so when they contacted me back and said that I would be placed in Birmingham, Alabama, um, I decided I would still take it because my brother lived in Huntsville, Alabama, so I was comfortable going there. And also, it was pretty close to Atlanta, Georgia.
Uh,
And I had known Georgia as being this pinnacle of kind of like Black fashion. It was kind of growing and like, kind of be known for like Black Hollywood. So I was like, I've always kind of wanted to live in Georgia. It is only 2.5 hours away. So I
mhm.
kind of put that in my mind when I moved to Alabama that I would be close to the city of Atlanta. So I wasn't super nervous about
Mhm.
that. So I took the position and I moved out to Alabama. Mind you, my brother, he's in Alabama, but an hour and a half away. So I still don't really know anybody, just the people in my organization. Ended up spending 2 years there in Bessemer, teaching at Bessemer City High School. I loved the experience, made a whole bunch of new friends, and the students to this day are still a lot of my close friends as
Mhm.
well. But just the experience of leaving Seattle, Washington, picking up my life, moving to a different state, and then being able to adapt,
Right.
that made me not afraid to move again and
Oh,
to try and adapt again. So when I had this opportunity to move to Atlanta and stay with one of my friends, I took it. I was like, I have friends here, but I'm not really tied to Alabama. I can drive back if I want to.
right.
So I just picked up myself, moved to Atlanta, started doing my fashion full time. Eventually got a job as a waitress part time to kind of supplement my income. But I had a goal in mind. I didn't want to work a full time job plus do fashion on the side. I just knew I couldn't handle both of it. You know, um, and so I think God was really protecting me during that time of my life because that's a hard life working as a waitress, and working long hours at night and stuff. But it gave me the flexibility to do my designs. Plus, when you're in like the waitress industry, you know you don't really have to take that work with you home. When you're a teacher or when you're in an actual career, you take it home with you. You have to, plan for the next day, plan for the next week and stuff like that. When you're a waitress, you leave your work at work, and so you're at home, you're free to, to think about other things